Good afternoon, everybody. Mohammed Coovadia, VP of Customer Support and Success. Today, I'm going to talk to you very quickly about lessons in customer empathy and advocacy. In DigitalOcean, I run the customer support, the customer success, and our services teams. And our job is to be the first line of defense, the first engagement that you have when you reach out to DigitalOcean. Our job is to make sure that we keep customers. Our job in our organization is to make sure that we expand and help our customers grow. And making sure that we do it in a way that meets our brand and our philosophy around simplicity and around customer love. So what I'm going to do today, there were a lot of options. We don't have a lot of time. I could probably speak to you for about 20, 30, 50 minutes. Actually 50, 60, 70 minutes. But I'm going to keep it down to 15 to 20, and then everybody can get to tea. Instead of talking to you about specific tooling, instead of talking to you about specific processes, I'm going to talk to you about the framework we use, and I think that would be more applicable as you go about developing your own products, your own systems, and eventually, and I'm pretty sure, your own support teams, because I still haven't met a company that didn't need one. So I'm going to talk through it in sort of 5 phases here. Just a definition of what this is, talk to you about the paradigm that I've learned over the years around supporting and engaging with customers, a framework for perhaps you can take away with you, measures on how to be successful, and some of the results. In support, the question is, what do we do? And my answer, everybody, is we do the hard things. We have to do the hard things so that customers cannot have to worry about those hard things. Over the course of my career, I've been doing this for about 22 years. I've worked at super small companies, 15 people, 500 customers. I've worked at large US telcos. I've built support teams at the biggest big data companies in the world. I've taken companies public. We've taken companies through acquisitions. And at every stage, I've realized that 9.5 out of 10 times, this part of the business is done incorrectly. And when it's done incorrectly, what you end up with is the leaky bucket problem. You spend all your time, you spend all your money getting customers in, and you just lose them every day. And at the end of the year, you wonder, why did my revenue not hit my targets? When we think about support, when I think about support, and I think about it everywhere, we use the word designed intent. You cannot add support, you cannot add customer success afterwards. You literally have to think about this when you're designing your product. Support is not an afterthought, it should never be an afterthought. Because one, you have to have the right paradigm about it. Most of you will run through this exercise, you'll build your product, you'll put it out in front of customers. The first customer will report a problem, and you'll say, oh crap, what do I do now? Your engineering team will start taking support, and you say, you know what, we should hire some guy or girl, and they'll take the support problems. And then you sort of grow a support team organically. What you end up with is a team that's working, in my opinion, against the outcome that you are trying to achieve. You start chasing the wrong metrics. So you have to start with what your definition of support and success is. And I put a few things up here. I won't read it to you. You guys can read. But at the end of the day, the paradigm you need to align yourself around is that the support and success teams are part of your product teams. They are not adjacent. They are not follow after. They are literally a part of your product development lifecycle. What is not support? And this is very important. When you design those teams, when you don't think about it, you don't understand what the mission of this part of the business is. And what you chase is, how do we solve more tickets? How do we meet our SLAs? How do we increase our capacity to manage more volume? How do we limit our cost in support? You are literally doing the wrong thing here. If you chase this, you are like Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill. At the end of the day, you lose. And I've seen so many teams fail at this. And I've seen so many leaders argue and fight because nobody wants to invest in support. This is not where you make your money. You make your money in keeping your customers and you make your money in putting more product out. So at DO, this is how we think about support, and actually how I think about support everywhere. Support as part of your product. When your product is working well, everybody loves you. You spend all the money you can investing in that. But a product never works perfectly. You never anticipate what your customer is going to do. They always do something crazy. You always hit unique edge cases. You run into infrastructure problems. There's always something that happens. When your support fails, your user goes to your documentation. If you're lucky, you've invested in this part of your business, you can help your customer be self-sufficient, because nobody wants to pick up a phone and talk to a support person. Your developers, you guys like to be self-sufficient. Your customers generally like to be the same. They go to the documentation, maybe they go to a community, if you've built a strong community, they get an answer there. They go to Google, they try to Google the error messages, they try to find some help, and then the last thing they do is they reach out to your support team. When all these other things fail, that's the piece that cannot fail. If that piece fails, 100% lost that customer, because your product is crap at the end of the day. They couldn't use it. If any of these things can save you, then you have a chance of saving that customer and keeping them long term. So that's how we think about support and the paradigm. As we think about framework, we first have to start thinking about what we're trying to solve. So this picture here is something I drew my first week at DigitalOcean. As I started using the product, I started understanding the product and how customers use it. I realized your customers have recurring pain points. 6 out of 10 times. It's about 57 to 65% of the time. The problem your customer runs into is the problem that you've already seen and other customers have run into, or that same customer has run into before. And you force your customers to work around your problems. When you think about the customer journey, that little boat there, every month, every day, they use your product, they're circling around and around, they're sailing on their journey, but they run across the same issues. Every month they do billing, they have to pay you. If there's a problem in your billing process, they run through that same problem every month. Every time there's a maintenance event for DO, customers have a particular experience. If that's problematic, they're going to continue running through that, because those things never go away. Every time they want to expand, they want to spin up new servers for us, they want to consume new games on your product or new features, they run it. There's recurring pain points that you have to map out. And you can map that out in your product cycle, in your design cycle. And that's incredibly pertinent as you think about how you then build your support side and your success side of the business. If you guys are not familiar, most of you, when you think about acquisition, you think about acquisition funnels. At DO, we think about loops, growth loops. Shivan talked about some of how we, if you were at the Hatch session the other day, he talked about growth loops. The inputs, the outputs of the things you do in your company, in your development, are usually inputs right back into your user that come right back around. So when we think about acquisition, we don't think about putting customers in the top and customers falling out at the bottom. When you think about Slack, every time they get a new customer, the output is that they end up getting another customer because their coworker needs to talk to the guy that's on Slack, so he has to join. And then the other guy has to join. And so that's the growth loop. It's more viral, and it's more realistic of people who are cloud native. In the cloud native environment, you don't think about linear funnels. You think about growth loops. And I encourage you to look at some of the works happening out of Andreessen Horowitz, out of the folks at HubSpot and Grubhub that really explain this process. But for us, when we design support, we design success, we work through multiple growth loops. In the entire company, when we think about product, we think about acquisition, we think about community, we think about marketing, everything's a loop in our system. And when we think about support, we have 3 key loops, and there's multiple sub-loops out of that. First job in support, customer calls and you got to resolve that problem. After that, there's a loop in there, and I'll walk through that. You have to remove that problem. You have to remove that problem permanently for the next customer. For that customer, again, if he ever comes around to that use case or that behavior. And then finally, you have to anticipate that problem. Because if you can anticipate that problem, you're actually building those solutions into your products and then building new features, better value, more stickiness, especially if you're a SaaS company or you're cloud native and that's your business model. Talking about those loops, just quickly, this is how we define them. We call it the support development lifecycle. This is actually a subset of the product development lifecycle, where at the very end, when the customers report issues, again, we think about how do we efficiently resolve that issue, and we have specific metrics, and I'll share with this in the next slide. How do we go through and then remove those issues out of the system, and how do we then anticipate? At DO, we see 20, 30,000 cases a month. We do it with a team that's orders of magnitude smaller than most other companies. And my support team here can admit to that. We do it with 20, 25 people. The only way we can do this is to be more efficient. This here, when we think about the design, is not about working more tickets. We're not interested in working more tickets. We don't hire people to be in a call center. I've run telco support where it was call centers, and the way to stay ahead of the game is throw more bodies at the problem. In our business, that's not what we need to do. That's not what we can do. We don't want to invest this much in this part of the business unless it's value add. So we have to get to a point where we can anticipate and drive that customer experience and that customer sentiment. How much time do I have? All right, 5. Perfect. Actually, I'm going to finish early then. So when we talk about our metrics, most times you walk into a success organization, you walk into a support organization, and they ask you, your leaders ask, teams ask, what's my SLA? How often do we meet that SLA? How many tickets can we handle a month? How do we optimize our tooling? How do we find better automation so that we can solve the same problem over and over and over and over again? And the machine that is built is not about producing an effective product. The machine that is built is about how fast can you rev? How many revolutions can you get out of this machine? You have to go faster and faster and faster. So you're doing 20,000 tickets a month, and you suddenly release new product, and a year later you're doing 40,000 tickets a month. You have to have linear growth in your team. You have to go from 25 to 50 people. That may not equate to what your revenue curve looks like. That may not relate to how you're thinking about budget. You have to change your way you measure. These measures tie back to that design and that paradigm earlier that I shared with you. The first thing we look at when new issues come in is how many known knowns are there? Is this 60% of stuff we've seen before? And if it is, in the near term, we put in quick fixes for those so we can get them out the door, get the customer back up and running, right? If a customer comes in and says, I have a billing problem, you and 5,000 other people had the same billing problem yesterday. We got messaging for you, we got solutions for you, we click a button, lots of things trigger off and we automate so we can get them back up and running as quickly as possible. Next step we have is how do we deal with the net new, that other 40%, stuff we've never seen before, right? Product released a new product. What the heck is this? We don't know. We need time. We need time to investigate. We need time to do root cause analysis. We need time to work with engineering. That's where we want to spend 70% of our time. We want to spend 70% of our time with a talented support organization, a talented success organization that's actually diving into product, diving into code in some places, and helping find the way out of that mess. Then they become known knowns. We figure out what short-term fixes are, and we also take that and try to turn that into long-term fixes. Of course, SLA is important. You need to get in front of customers fast. One of the primary drivers to keeping a customer is immediacy. If you can solve their problem immediately, they are back up and on the road, you have a chance at saving them. The next step, as we go after resolve, when we move into a remove, we take all those known knowns, and we have advocates in our teams. Every day, every week, they meet with product, they meet with engineering, they are analyzing trends, and they're trying to figure out what known knowns are new, and how can we push that into our engineering teams to go fix those problems. This is not sexy work. No engineer, no developer likes to work on sustaining. They all want to work on new features, new product, right? This is the unsexy work. But this is how your product actually improves. This is where you find the misses in your assumptions in your design phase. And you can take that and iterate. Now you're an agile company. And your agility is not purely in your head. You're actually closing that feedback loop. Some of those issues are fixed. I showed you the dominoes earlier. It's not just about taking it to engineering and fixing it in product. You got to fix it in documentation. You got to fix it in the community. If support is fixing any one issue in any of those places, they're getting the customer back up and running that much faster, and you're reducing your volume that your teams have to manage to try to resolve. And it also allows the next 1,000, 10,000 customers to solve that problem before they have to talk to you. And this is the loop that's self-sustaining. You also have to then resolve those issues and monitor your backlog. How quickly are we working our way through this backlog? And that is also a measure of your ability to be nimble in your organization, whether it's in your engineering teams, your documentation teams, your support teams. We also take feedback into marketing. We take feedback into legal. There's nowhere that our feedback does not go back into the business. If you build traditionally, you generally don't take that anywhere. Comes to support solves a case, and it drops off the map. There's no advocacy for your customer back into your company unless it's through your product team, if your product team's spending enough time with your customers, and sometimes through your marketing teams. And then lastly, but quite important, is deflect. Deflect has lots of components to it, and I didn't blow this out, but obviously you want to deflect problems in your product first. If a customer never sees a problem, that's the best deflection you can have. But if you know there's a problem, how can you go about and deflect those issues? Sometimes it's simple issue is putting an FAQ up there so that a customer can go self-serve, writing a tutorial so the customer can figure this out, engaging in the community so that the community can sort this out, working with marketplace partners so that they can solve these problems for your customers before they ever run into problems, giving best practices so customers don't ever go down these paths. There's lots of options, and that section blows out pretty aggressively. Self-service. Obviously, customers would like to do this themselves. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to wait for you to solve this problem for them. Part of deflection is how much do you deflect through other means, and how much do you give it to the customer to solve these problems. And then lastly is knowledge sharing. Taking all of this learnings that you are learning and from the product, from other customers. You see all the customers. We see 20,000 issues a month. How do we take that and give it to all the other customers and say, look at all these errors, look at all these mistakes. Don't do this. If you don't do these things, you won't run into these problems. And then it allows your customers to be successful because now they are designing better. They are utilizing your product in the way that you think they should be used, or that you've designed your product for. And at the end of the day, it drives your customer sentiment, whether it's NPS, CSAT, whatever, customer effort score, however you measure the health of your the affinity health that the customer has for your company, for your brand, and for your product. That's the most important thing. It's not about the ticket. It's about, will the customer stay? Will the customer spend more? Will the customer bring you more revenue? And 9 times out of 10, when they hit you in support, you are letting them go out the back door because you're not giving them the right experience to solve these problems. So the outcome, what is support? We are customer advocates who drive engagement by delivering an exceptional experience. In DO, this is, I'm the VP of Customer Success. We always thinking about how the customers can be successful. Customers are successful by experiential measures, and then everything else flows from that. If you do it the other way, you are really optimizing for your operations. How can you be more operationally efficient? How you can spend as little money, but you're not optimizing for customer stickiness, customer adoption, customer growth. So I'll stop there. Is it time? All right, perfect. Again, my name is Mohammed Coovadia. I can go over this for hours and hours. This is something I'm extremely passionate about. I love building success organizations. I love building services organizations. And these are hard-won lessons that I've learned over 2 decades. I've got lots and lots of scars. I've made lots and lots of stupid mistakes. And if I can help one of you not make any of the stupid mistakes I made, then my job will be done here today. So reach out to me. I'll be around in the lobby. I'll be around after hours. My name, Mohammed at DigitalOcean.com. If you ever need to reach out to me. I speak to customers all day long, all the time. And if you send me a note, I guarantee you're going to have a conversation with me in a very, very short period of time. So thank you very much.